Welcome to African Teapot Podcast. My name is Exie.
And my name is Lini. Join us as we journey through Africa's vast variety of culture and heritage.
We explore issues most African families face, both home and abroad. Make sure to like, share, and follow this podcast. Join the conversation on social media and let your voice be heard.
Breast ironing is a widespread practice in Cameroon. According to statistics from the United Nations, 1 out of every 4 girls is a victim of the act.
Hello Teapotians, welcome back to our 4th episode of Season 4 on African Teapot Podcast. Today's topic is titled Breast Ironing. Before I get into what that is, first, how are you guys doing? And we are still in the Women's History Month, so hopefully you guys listened to the last episode. Most of you did, and we've had a little of conversation on Instagram about that. And I am glad that one thing on African Teapot that we do, or I've realized, is that most of our male listeners are very supportive when it comes to topics that have to do with women, and vice versa. I realize topics that have to do with men, we women support, because I know we already have podcasts and communities that already push across a lot of topics and information and empowering messages to women. But sometimes I think we do not highlight that if men support us, the stronger we're going to be. If men support us, the faster we are going to keep the ball, we're going to move the ball rolling when it comes to women and equality, and it comes to women and their rights and protecting the girl child. So I'm so thankful for our fellow brothers in the house and husbands and fathers who just supported. It was an outpour of messages, and sometimes they want to be anonymous, which it's okay, but sometimes I really wish you guys can come out and the women on African Teapot just see how amazing you guys are. Now, with that out of the way, let me get to breast ironing. When I did a poll on social media, I realized that many of us who will be tuning in today listening have never heard breast ironing before. And I wasn't surprised, because there was a lot about breast ironing that I heard, being someone who had heard of breast ironing before when I was younger, I realized that I still was unaware of. So when a lot of people were like, what's breast ironing? I wasn't surprised at all. Because looking at the data and the information, you realize that it is not really talked about that much. And you have many reasons as to why that is not being talked about. It's not, people know more about female genital mutilation and even child marriage, and they really don't know about breast ironing. But the data would shock you, and you'll be surprised how hand in hand these practices go together. Most people that get married early, or young girls actually, and boys that are married early, most often the girls experience breast ironing. Most often they also experience female genital mutilation, right? Female genital mutilation, if you're wondering what it is, I had that on social media, on our Instagram. You can go there, check out the post, check out what episode it was last season, and you can listen to that. It's the mutilation of the clitoris of a girl. And breast ironing pretty much is in the word. It's when hot objects are used to iron out or press out the breast of young girls at puberty. So the moment your breast starts shooting out your hormones, it's showing that you're maturing, you're in the puberty stage. This is usually done by women in your family. So your auntie, grandma, mother, older sisters, they are the ones that would take sometimes stones, sometimes wooden spoons or pistols, and they would hit it up across the fireplace. And they will use that to iron out your breast so as to prevent male gaze, so as to prevent male interaction or male sexual desires towards that said young girl. Okay? So this is what breast ironing is. I understood this when I was young, but I didn't understand how high the number was in Cameroon. I didn't know that. And so when this came to my mind after I did last episode, I thought, let me do breast ironing. I've been sharing everyone's story. This time, let me actually inspire a topic. So let me do this. And when I went and checked the data, it was alarming how Cameroon pretty much, we are ranking one of the highest countries with cases of breast ironing. I know. And then at the same time, there is also this increase in the UK of breast ironing kind of situations coming up there. And that's because of migration, a lot of immigrants, right? So when I heard that, I was like, wow. So I had to do this episode. So since you heard those numbers at the start, I thought I should put that just so you hear that first, because that's my home country, and you can see how out of every 4 girls, you have a girl with a story like that. So now I want you guys to listen to this other audio, and it's going to talk about what breast ironing is.
Breast ironing is a traditional practice that affects women and girls. It will typically begin soon after puberty, and since there's no specific age that puberty starts, a child may be subjected to the practice at any age, as soon as they begin to develop breasts. Breast ironing is a practice designed to make girls look less womanly and typically begins in the home. The thinking is that a child will be safer from unwanted male advances if they physically hinder or delay the outward development of their breasts. The misconception is that they're protecting the girl from harassment, protecting them from rape, abduction, or early forced marriage. Or simply, without distraction, a child could focus on their education. It's often a misplaced act of protection or love, yet unlike other preventative measures, it provides no health or any other benefits. It's mostly done by female members of the family, by an auntie, a grandmother, elder sister, or nanny. They apply heat using tools like hot stones, a wooden spoon, or a pestle. These tools may have been used across generations to burn and suppress the breast tissue. It happens gradually over a period of time. Over the duration of this practice, the breasts will be painful and contained with an elastic band or bandage to hinder development. The practice will continue until the breasts stop growing. There will be health implications such as pain or discomfort. There may be anxiety or other psychological consequences, including trying to understand how a caring parent can inflict this type of pain. The practice is more common in West and Central Africa, yet has no borders. It occurs all over the world and has migrated with people and cultures to the UK. It's important that we are not judgmental of cultural practices, yet this is a human rights issue and violates the rights of the child. It's the responsibility of everyone within the community, especially those in different professional groups, to be vigilant and take action to safeguard girls.
The baby is never be the age that he can carry breast. You see now, a little baby like this, the baby come out. No, we don't want it. You must be some reservoir girl before your breast come out.
After that little lecture, taking you guys back to class, you can see how most often our parents, our grandparents, aunties, and older sisters, most often they are the ones that perpetrate this act on their kids. And most often it's coming from a place of love, and it's coming from a place of ignorance. And also it's coming from pressure. Some cases it's pressure from the family. I watched this documentary and listened to this lady who went through breast ironing. She had 3 daughters. She tried it on her first daughter, and then the last 2 she was like, no, she's not going to do that anymore. And she did it for the first daughter because her mother and her mother-in-law pressured her to. But with the last 2 girls, she was like, okay, no, I'm not going to do this to these last 2 kids. So that case just made me see how much pressure, culture, and tradition can place on someone, even when they think that what they're doing is not right. So breast ironing also has nothing to really, like sometimes, you know how early marriage or child marriage, poverty was like one of the driving forces for that. It's ironic that in this case, poverty is not really what is the driving force, but you realize that the driving force here is a twisted mentality of protecting your kid from sexual crimes, right? Because these mothers don't want their daughters to be raped. They don't want their daughters to get pregnant and bring disgrace to the family. They don't want their daughters to look grown up than they're supposed to, because it would just expose these girls to sexual behaviors that these mothers don't want to sit down and have with their kids, right? They prefer delaying growth to sitting down and having conversations regarding puberty and sexual behavior and responsibility. So you would realize that in the case of breast ironing mentality, ignorance is a big force behind it. It comes number one. Second is the pressure, right? So obviously, truly, you would think the practice should be dying off with people knowing or being educated, but you would realize that sometimes classroom education has little to do when it comes to culture and traditions, like we noticed from last episode. There is a strong hold when it comes to culture and tradition. And at the same time, it's interesting that most areas that practice female genital mutilation also practice early marriage and breast ironing, because female genital mutilation is to make a young girl not have sexual desires, right? And at the same time, breast ironing is also to prevent sexual attention from men. But at the same time, when they're trying to delay puberty, trying to delay these kids, these young girls from looking mature, right? It's interesting that they want them to also get married early. I just thought that was, when I listened to this and I put everything together, I was like, it's such an irony. And it's such, it's like a paradox. I don't understand. Like, you want to protect your kids from sexual predators and sexual crimes and misbehavior, but you don't give them enough information to prepare them for that or tell them about the dangers to that. But at the same time, you take them and marry them off early without this information and expect them to be good mothers and good wives. You understand what I'm saying? I thought like that was just something that was very weird to me when I realized that all these acts are a way of preservation, but at the same time, you expose someone to one of the biggest institutions, which is marriage, because it comes with a lot of responsibility, and you expose these young girls to that with very little information to prepare them for what is happening out there, and then you tell them it's right. I just think that is something that when we are trying to fight all these rights against all these violations against women and against the rights of a girl, these are things that need to also be emphasized in these structures that are placed or put in place to protect them. One thing also that I noticed is that the quickness in which people think it's okay just because survivors talk about it, and you can tell like they're like, you see their breast full or you see them come out sitting there talking. It's like, well, she had breast ironing, but she's fine, she's good. Now she has her kids. You will realize that when I listen to this documentary, some of the women have issues breastfeeding. They have deformities in the breast. They have lumps in there. They do tend to have growth sometimes. They need operations, and they also have serious psychological issues and self-esteem issues. And these are things that we need to also bring out warning signs. How do you know that a child is going through breast ironing? They're like, when they don't want to undress, they are shy, timid, they don't want to talk about sexuality, they don't want to talk about their experiences, or they kind of look like they're in pain, but they're embarrassed about it. Most often, it's resulting from things like this, from mutilation of women. And the fact that women in general have to be redesigned to fit a certain, narrative that the society deems to not tempt men is something that is very alarming to me. And at the same time, these same cultures and traditions do nothing to also prepare young boys from being predatorial, right? So it's kind of like there's a pursuit and there's just someone who is just raised to be preventative. And then there is another one who is raised to pursue. So in this scenario, there's really no solution. Because if I'm just taught to pursue and the other person is just taught to, safeguard, how are they supposed to meet in between? To marry, how are they supposed to meet in between? To reproduce or date or whatever. You see, that gap is a problem. And even as Africans growing and being in the diaspora, we come out here and with all the education, we still carry these traditions and stuff and this low self-esteem, and we still move along with it, right? Because, we just don't know. So this is kind of a form of, it's like a twisted love form that parents have towards their kids and they show to their children that traumatize these kids. I just thought it was something that we should highlight, and this is going to be the last episode for our Women's History Month and regarding one of these topics for this month. So any other topics you have, you bring them up, of course. Mother's Day is coming up, or we have the rest of the year. We can always talk about it. But I'm going to let you guys listen to this audio at the end. And this, just to give you guys an idea of what is going on, this mother is heating up a stone. In Cameroon, we're going to call it like a grounding stone. That's what we use. We used to crush spices on a stone and ground them to a paste. So she's heating this up in the fireplace, and she calls her daughter, and she's ironing out her breast. And I want you to just listen to her talk and see where she's coming from. And then sometimes maybe we would understand the difficulties in fighting against such practices in Cameroon. So I'm going to see you guys in another 2 weeks.
I'm doing this because this girl, your breast come out quick. We never really reach the age that your breast support for come out. So we do this. Our tradition, we do this so that the breast go back, come out for the correct time. Sit here. Move it. Move your hands.
Ay! Ay! Ay, ma. Ay!
Thanks for listening, and make sure to join us for our next episode.
Follow African Teapot on both Instagram and Facebook for daily inspiration and motivation.
Subscribe to our YouTube channel, African Teapot Podcast.